Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live, talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynn@pghcitypaper.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hello there. How you doing? Hey. I'm just settling in. It's always dangerous when I start with this voice. It's Monday. I can't bear it. As usual, a lot happened over the weekend. The good news, obviously, is the fascist in France not only didn't win, she got clobbered 2-1. Vive la France. Way to go, guys. Thank you very much. Jesus. I mean, that was a real bellwether election. It doesn't mean that in 5 years, when they do it again, there couldn't be another outcome. But a lot of people are pointing to the fact that ever since, did I say hello? Hi. Ever since Donald Trump was elected, all of the far-right candidates, the populist nationalist types, the neo-fascist types that have stood for election in Europe have failed. When many of them were thought to be ripe for an upset win, given the anti-populism, anti-immigration, general fears and strife, blah, 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 being felt by people all over the country, the world, the universe. So I think what's possible, and I love it, that Donald Trump ends up being sort of by virtue just of his presence, by virtue of the mistake made by America's voters, the rest of the world has seen when you put someone like him with the kind of supporters that he trails in his wake. I'm not talking about all of them, but I'm talking about the alt-right, the neo-fascists, all that kind of craziness. People look, people get scared, and people say, we ain't going to do that here. So it's good if we maybe can keep this kind of momentum going. We, the American people, failed the world community, as did the Brits with Brexit. But since then, with the exception of, and I'm just talking about Europe and us, only 2 countries in Europe have gone decidedly right-wing, potentially neo-fascist, and that is those are Hungary, who has a vile person at the helm, and Poland. That ain't nothing, but it's... Anyway, the French vote. Yay, yay, yay. Oh, we'll be reading a lot about the old lady, the new French First Lady. Jeez. Old enough to be his mom. I love it. So that's the good news. Looking at the bad news, of course, is just endless in its. It's just endless and starting to take on a kind of. This is what worries me. A kind of sameness. A kind of and now he's pulling all the scientists out of the EPA. Oh, and now, and now they've gutted what agency? And you mean during the opioid epidemic, they're cutting the very agency that, what? And now, and what are these grifters up to now over in Beijing? And, man, it's just, It's endless, and will continue to be so. Hey, by the way, you can take part in this conversation, which is at this point a monologue, by phoning. I don't have the number here, so let me try this. 412 200 5686.
Killing it.
Ta-da! 200 5686. And you'll get first Celine, and then you'll get moi. You can also email at lynn@pghcitypaper.com. I'm having a little problem with the email. I just tried to reply to one of you, and it wouldn't go. Actually, let me read this email to you. This comes from the conversations we were having last week on the wonderful state of our health care in America, especially now that Trump care is threatening to become the law of the land. But Allison writes this. Sounds like a typical American horror story these days. She says, I won't go through all the details, but my fiancé has been fighting an ulcer on his foot for 2 years, which was caused by a broken piece of tile in a hospital bathroom while he was there for another ailment. Okay, so he leaves the hospital with now a 2-year real problem with an ulcer on his foot caused by what? The hospital. His doctor, Allison Wright, has been repeatedly giving him skin grafts at thousands of dollars a pop. The skin grafts have never taken. He also has been prescribed an ointment which cost $1,000 per tube and lists cancer as the number one side effect. You can't make this up. You can't make this up. We have most recently, she says, been researching treatments, many of which are used in other countries and have proven effective, but almost impossible to get approval from our insurance. And the one they're really looking at is oxygen therapy. The therapies we are asking for are much less costly than those prescribed by our doctors. But because they make a smaller profit on them, is that the reason we can't access the other treatments? She's just asking. Well, my guess is she's onto something there. What kind of a broken system is that? What kind of a broken system is this? We heard from one of you last week who actually got up and flew to Moscow, for God's sake. Spent over a month, I guess, right, in a hospital there, getting treatment she could not access here for so much less the cost. It's you can't. We're so used to the system we have here that we just take it. All you have to do is put it up against another kind of system, and there you get perspective. It's why I can't even find an adjective for the difference in the cost of the therapies that, I think her name was Josie, that Josie got in Moscow, where she paid far, 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 far less than she would have if she were here and insurance was supposedly picking up much of the tab. I don't know. I wasn't even intending to get into that. This is, well, welcome to America. I won't sign on to make America great again. Again. Because God knows we ain't. In a lot of ways, we're getting worse by the minute. So, okay, let's just take a little side track, if you don't mind, into some of what has been going on in terms of our regulatory agencies and cabinet departments just in the last few days. The one that's getting a lot of notice today, just by virtue of being one of the most recent outrages, is the EPA, the agency that is supposedly the Environmental Protection Agency, is throwing out scientists on its extremely important review board, a review board in place made up of scientists that look at, decide whether or not the science that the agency is basing its actions on is sound and has in fact been rigorously vetted. So they're kicking some of those scientists off who had more time on their terms, and they're going to stick in scientists you can't make this up, who work for the very industries that the EPA regulates. They're going to actively go out looking for wolves and foxes to stick in the hen house. Here is the spokesperson for the EPA. Quote, the administrator, that would be Scott Pruitt, the administrator believes we should have people on this board who understand the impact of regulation on the regulated community. That's not what the board is there for. It's not there to talk. That's not what the board is there for. The board is there to review the science that EPA action is based upon. You don't put, well, what am I squawking about? The fact of the matter is we've already been introduced to the idea of alternative facts. But these guys really want to go into alternative science. We don't like what the scientists are telling us, so we're going to pack our science advisory boards with scientists who have already sold their soul because they're like the scientists who work for the tobacco industry, who said, well, there's no connection that we can determine between smoking and cancer or any other ill effects. So, I have said since I started yapping into a microphone, I have said, when you put Republicans in the executive branch, they then take the agencies and cabinet offices that are there to protect we the people, the citizenry, and they turn them on their head so that all they do is protect corporate America. Whether it's the Labor Department, man, what they do with the Labor Department is the Labor Department, it's health and human services. Let's throw about 40,000 of them off of the health insurance rolls. It's the Environmental Protection Agency, which turns into the Polluters Protection Agency, and on and on and on. They do it every time under every Republican administration, but this time, it's breathtaking. Also, The Trump administration is proposing to gut the budget of the drug czar. Now, normally I'm not into drug czars because drug czars, when I remember them, were all about busting pot smokers. And nothing's more ludicrous than that to me. But now the drug czar has a serious epidemic on his or her hands, right? The opioid crisis. And at this time, more money, more science, more all kinds of everybody on deck. We got something here. We've got to stop and roll back. He's cutting 95% of their budget for the Office of National Drug Control Policy. Now, where that epidemic is most epidemic is in Trump country. Yeah? Yeah. It's in the suburbs. It's in rural America. It's in small town America. These are the places, poorer America. This is where the thing has really hit absolute crisis proportion, where morgues can't keep up. They don't even have room for the bodies of the young that are dying, bang, 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 like that. So this would really be a good time to cut the office that, in fact, targets such a crisis. Okay. The only government these guys believe in is the military. That's the only government they ever want to fund. Yeah. You know why? First of all, it appeals to their, macho instincts, but also because it rewards handsomely the military industrial complex for whom they work, actually. All right. Is Joe on the line? Joe? Hello, Joe?
Hi, Lynn.
Hi.
Hey, you like pot. You're pro-pot. You're pro-immigration. You hate stupid wars. You don't like the industrial. You're like me on that. I got the candidate for you. And we need to get 50,000 signatures. They're trying to draft. And I know you don't like the guy, but Jesse Ventura. And don't say, oh, God, he'll never win. I didn't think Trump would win. They're trying to get him to run for president.
What? So you think our side needs a clown? Oh, come on.
No, he's not a clown. He really isn't.
We need another entertainer?
He's not a chicken hawk. He understands the military.
He's a failed governor. He's a failed governor of Minnesota.
Only because the people in there were like Obama against him. He had Republicans in there, and there weren't independents. But we need a change from the Democrats.
Yeah, but you can do better than
a Democrat.
You can't.
Honest to God, I think he's a guy. You have to listen to what he has to say, and listen. He pretty much falls in line with everything you talk about on here.
Well, because
you might disagree with it.
You're talking about my more libertarian tendencies. He's a libertarian, essentially.
No, he's conservative, but on social issues, he's liberal. But he doesn't like stupid-ass wars. He doesn't believe in Vietnam. He was in there when Vietnam went on. He's just the ideal candidate. I'll vote for him if he gets that far. I don't think he'll have the money to back him.
And what party? What party would he be running for?
I think he would run as a Democrat.
No, he won't.
That's why he probably would because.
Well, because they don't want him.
Independent. Well, they didn't want Bernie either.
Joe, dream on. No, dream on. Come on.
No,
we can't be digging back into our.
Trump got in there. Trump got in there, and I thought that guy would never
Okay,
get in there.
so here's the thing. Trump gets in, and now we think we have to go the same way. You have to get somebody who is like a celebrity, a known quantity,
No
a tough
celebrity,
talker,
just
what? An entertainer, all those things that he shares. And that's why you see a lot of talk about...
At least he was in government. He was in government.
Yeah, he was. He's the failed governor of Minnesota.
He's not a chicken hawk like old fried deferment Donald is.
Okay, well, you
At
can...
least he knows what it's like.
All right, Joe, you can have your bromance with him, but he ain't gonna
I'm not
head
having a
any
bromance.
party's ticket.
I just listen to his show, and I like his ideas.
Okay. Listen,
A lot of his ideas.
I have heard him. I know he's capable of being an extremely articulate person. And yes, there are places where I'm sure he and I see eye to eye. I'm sorry, he doesn't have a chance.
Open borders. So I'm saying it's the ideal candidate.
Okay.
I think.
Okay.
Better than the Democrats. Now, we'll probably end up with the Democratic, but I say give him a shot.
Okay.
If he decides to run. Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye. That's what we've come to. Jesse Ventura is our knight in shining armor. Another thing this despicable administration did that just boiled my blood, speaking of immigration, is the Attorney General, that'd be Jefferson Beauregard Sessions, the Attorney General created a special federal hotline and even a little department. I spent money on this. Like, I don't know what it's called. The Office of Murderous Immigrants or something. And they're going to keep a tally. Anytime somebody whose paperwork ain't quite right does something bad, they're going to put it up there so we can see. So we'll begin to understand what a threat these people are to us. And so as part of that important work being done now by our Justice Department, there is a federal hotline that has been put in. And on the website for the Justice Department, the hotline is for citizens to report crimes committed by, quote, criminal aliens. Well, that hotline's been overwhelmed since they put it up. Overwhelmed by calls about abductions by extraterrestrials, visits by Bigfoot, and Muggleborns, calls about UFO sightings, criminal aliens. You want criminal aliens? Man, we see them everywhere. So people have just been, feel free to add to it. You know, call them up. They're looking for murderous aliens. Okay, well, you could, I suppose, find some. Be abducted by one. Be probed and then set back here. Criminal aliens. See, you start calling people things like that. Humans. You call them aliens. Which conjures up in our heads, yeah, E.T. Not humans. Criminal aliens. And then that's what is in your head about people crossing our border. Oh, dear. When most of the people with the courage to come and cross our border have to have more initiative, more guts, more determination than most people, including probably us. And even when caught, they start over and come again. That's the kind of tenacity, hard work, determination, and vision, scrappiness that made America great. And these are the people that Republicans demonize and turn into cartoon criminal aliens. I've always thought and always said that the reason America has been great in some ways is, and certainly unique, is that we have opened our arms sometimes to all kinds of people who have that courage to leave everything they know, to go to a place whose language they don't know, whose culture is different, whose custom, because they want a better life. They're not coming to get on welfare. They're coming to work. I don't know why people can't see that. Okay, what else we got here? The Kushners. Now, as we know, we have an incurious, relatively uneducated president who's sort of lazy and not in any way into the job that he got, other than some aspects of it I think he gets off on, but mostly he yearns for his old life. And so he has parceled out a lot of the stuff he's supposed to be doing to people he trusts, and that would be Jared Kushner and his son-in-law and his daughter. Is that it? I think that's about it, yeah. And the Kushner family that married into the Trump family, and vice versa, are, of course, much alike, like each other. Real estate, big real estate in Manhattan and environs. And the Kushner family now, and its business, real estate business, sees a real big opportunity here, seeing as the guy who used to own the company, essentially, Jared, is now in the White House, almost being the president of the United States. And so that's the kind of thing that you can sell. The Kushners didn't have to, other than Jared, they didn't have to sign off and put stuff in blind trusts. So these are grifters not on a par with the Trumps. I'm sorry, it'd be pretty hard to top them. But they're learning. And so you have Jared's sister over there in Beijing talking to a bunch of super rich Chinese and saying, we're going to put these beautiful towers up in New Jersey over there, and you can have a part of that. And you know what happens? If you invest in that, you have a part of that. If you put just $500,000 in, which is like nothing. If you put $500,000 in, you know what? You get fast track for American citizenship. We can get you a special visa, that EB-5 visa. That such a visa exists is an outrage. Anyone who invests $500,000 or more in some kind of American development project gets fast-tracked. So if you're rich, you can get fast-tracked to American citizenship even though you don't need it. The poor guy from China who dreams of coming to America and building his own business, that guy ain't going to get a visa. He can't pay the freight. Reporters who were at this thing were thrown out. These guys are selling, are just blatantly selling, essentially, access They're saying, you give us your money so we can build this thing. And, well, we got connections. Here is somebody who, is an ethics expert. He says this. This is highly problematic. It could well be interpreted as selling access to the White House. Yeah, it could. You don't even have to be sort of a scrupulous ethicist to arrive at such a conclusion. So there's Jared's sister up there talking about how wonderful her family is and why investing with them would be a no-brainer. She spoke of her grandparents. She spoke about her father, who founded the company, and talked about the values that he imparted and those values that steer the company to this day. She failed to mention that same father spent 3 years in prison for illegal campaign donations, tax evasion, and witness tampering. But, we're talking family values. I cannot stand. One of the things I hate the most about this administration is being represented to the world by the worst of us. That just blows my mind. I cringe. I want to hide my face in embarrassment. Which brings us to the one Trump who some people are, well, a little more sympathetic to. And that's for one reason and one reason only, even if they don't realize it. It's because she's beautiful. Ivanka. Ivanka had a book. She wrote a book. What an amazing woman. 3 children, essentially running half the country, skiing in Aspen, jetting around, representing the United States and Europe at forums, and beautiful, running her own company, sort of, kind of, wink, wink. And she wrote a book, too. It came out last week. It's called Women Who Work. I didn't read it. I will not be reading it. But God bless Ruth Marcus, because she did. And she is a columnist for the Washington Post. And she said this, in part, about Ivanka. This is a woman who uses architect as a verb. I have to tell you, I've never heard that one. Architect as a verb. Have you ever heard that, Celine? Dear God in heaven. As in, here's a sentence. Every woman should thoughtfully architect a life she'll love. She's using it as build. Architect a life she loves and actively work toward achieving her goals. Marcus says if there is an original thought in this book, it is well hidden. And a lot of the people that she essentially ripped off took their quotes to say, see, I mean, if I were smarter, I would have said that. They have been horrified that they've been included in the book. Jane Goodall being one. What's the other thing in here that just is a riot? Oh, yeah, Marcus says, it's quite clear that empathy doesn't run in the Trump family. So I guess the book shows Ivanka as self-involved as her father when she was in the book, she writes about being on the campaign trail and talking about meeting the men and women of our great nation. And, you know, the idea is you hope that when somebody who lives in such a gilded bubble has an opportunity to come out into the rest of the country and meet people, that it might have expanded her sense of what women's lives are, women's challenges are. But it appears that it didn't have that effect at all. And in fact, what she says about the campaign is all about herself. I met all these people, and I have grown tremendously. The experience has really been life-changing for me. And admittedly, she does complain a little. She does say that the rigors of the campaign were so incessant that she, quote, wasn't treating myself to a massage or making much time for self-care. So Marcus goes on. I mean, this is like shooting fish in a barrel. So in Ivanka Trump's Women Who Work, here's how she describes women who work. We're training for marathons and learning to code. We're planning adventures with our children and weekend getaways with our friends. Marcus says, no, we're not. We're taking the bus to 2 minimum wage jobs so we can avoid eviction. How tone deaf, how idiotic, how, we are being represented on the world stage by these people. And in some respects, they do represent us, don't they? Shallow, flash, posturing, braggadocio. They represent some aspect of us, yeah, no doubt about it. Milton, you're always on this. The office I'm talking about that Sessions created is called, oh, they're so clever. It's called the office, VOICE, voice. What do you think that stands for? Let's think. Voice. This is the one where you call up and report murderous aliens. What would be the V? Victims. Oh, that's what it is. It's victims. Sure, it's got to be victims' voice. Victims of immigrants, VOI. Victims of immigrant criminals, VOI. See, and what would the E be? Let's see what it really is. I'm just making that up. But oh yeah, there it is. Victims of immigration crime engagement. Oh, that was a stretch. Couldn't quite come up with the E. There it is. That's it. Thank God. Oh, no, it's the Department of Homeland Security has voice. I'm sorry. I was blaming that on Department of Justice. What do I know? Fake news, fake news. So there you have it. Thank God that department's there, and thank God we're absolutely decimating the department that might help attack the opioid epidemic. I'm glad these guys got their priorities straight. Brooke writes, Lynn, speaking to the earlier email, the one about the fiance who has this awful situation because he injured himself while in the hospital. Brooks says the problem is the insurance company. I mean, if you want the villain. Listen, there's so many villains, though. They all aid and abet. There's no doubt the insurance company, because they do now dictate the treatment you can have. I mean, who hasn't bumped into that? I have. My doctor says you need this pill. My insurance company says, no, you don't. My doctor says you need this. The insurance company said, I don't think so. And Brooks says, and the reason Obamacare is struggling is a lot to do with the insurance companies. You can't have a competitive insurance market without participating insurance companies. If you want to know who crafted the Trump Care bill, just look at the contributors to the House and Senate election campaigns. It's the insurance companies. Yeah, well, as I say, what you say is true, but it's not just them. The problem is it's so many of every single aspect of the system is broken. Every single one. Oh my God. Did you see this? There's a picture of a city worker, not here, New Orleans, and he's doing his job. He's in a what do you call that? One of those baskets that sends you up to like work on a utility pole or something. I was once in one of those. That was fun. He's in one of those baskets, but he doesn't look like a worker that you usually see in those baskets because he's wearing body armor and his face is covered. He is in that cherry picker because he's measuring the statue that he is about to help take down. It's a statue of the President of the Confederacy, Jefferson Davis. He's coming down. As is a statue of Robert E. Lee, as is a statue of some General Beauregard, because these are heroes of the rebels who took arms against the United States of America. Why, 150 years later, these rebels, traitors, statues should still stand is ludicrous, and that's what people are starting to realize. And so Mitch Landrieu, who is the mayor, has said they're coming down. Now, often what he's done is done this in the dead of night because, of course, there's some scary people who consider these men, Jefferson Davis and General Beauregard and Robert E. Lee, to be the greatest Americans of all. And one of those guys took out a 2-page ad in the local paper. And here's part of what he says, and it just shows the unbelievable sophistry and just idiocy. He says this to the mayor. I ask you, Mitch, should the pyramids in Egypt be destroyed since they were built entirely from slave labor? What about the Roman Colosseum? It was built by slaves who lived horrible lives, but it still stands today. He's equating taking down statues of the people who led the rebellion against the United States of America to buildings built by slaves. It ain't the same thing. It'd be like us ripping down the White House because it was built by slaves. The Capitol, it was built by slaves. Half the South, it was built by slaves. The economy of the United States, still humming along and given a hell of a head start on the backs of slaves. No, we're not taking any of that down. That's silly. But the adulation of those who owned those slaves, that's coming down. There's no history being revised. That's what they say. This is revisionism. No, there's no history being revised. But a community has to have some sense of who they put, in bronze as an exemplar to the community. And slave-owning traitors and rebels, I do not think need apply. And inasmuch as they're already there, take them down. Rosa Parks should have. Dr. King should have statues. It drives the losers, the white Southerners, it drives the losers crazy. David writes, in her book, Ivanka says everything she has, she earned through hard work. She doesn't get it. I'm sure she has worked hard in her life. But this is the classic case of somebody who was, literally born into comfort and wealth, riches, a head start. God almighty. But see, she doesn't know anything else. She knows she worked hard. She did. Maybe she did. But there are other people working every bit as hard, if not more. And guess what? They can't get a massage. They can't go to a day spa. They aren't sure. They're living with constant stress and fear of utility shutoffs or feeding their kids or a bus line all of a sudden not going where they need it to go. I mean, how do these people who live these such lucky lives in many ways, how don't they see that it's not the norm, and they have no more understanding of the norm than a criminally illegal alien would? Milton says, have you seen the video? Is that guy who's being kicked and beat, is he black? Oh, wonderful. Celine was looking at the video right before the show, and I saw her face just crumble. I said, what? And she showed, I just saw 2 seconds of it. It was violent as hell. He's being kicked. That was a black guy. White officer. Well, we're not talking about the continuing killing of black boys and men. But man, it just keeps happening. It just keeps happening. Sort of got taken off the front page because of all of Trump's shenanigans. It says here that Pittsburgh police have launched an investigation. City police officer, one is on top of this guy, another is kneeing him in the head, then kicking him in the face. The guy who took the videos from Newcastle, he said it was disturbing. They had him held down. The man was defenseless. So he was just being given some street justice, I guess, is how the cops might have seen it. I don't know. So he's the guy who posted the video. It's 10 seconds long, ending when other officers dispersed the crowd, including the guy from Newcastle who was videoing this. So the guy who was beaten is Nathan Stanley III. The cops say he claimed to have a gun and was threatening to shoot people at a bar. They say he had a strong odor of alcohol, slurred speech. He tried to reach toward his waistband. Every black guy who gets shot to death or gets beaten up like this, every cop says the same thing. He was reaching in his waistband. Maybe some are. But there's often been proof that a lot of them weren't. There's no reason if he was down for them to continue to... I mean, there is no way if he reached for his waistband, if he was drunk and threatening people, none of that matters. Once you have him under control, then you get him in a paddy wagon and you charge him and and let justice take its course. So he has been charged with aggravated assault, public drunkenness, and disorderly conduct. He managed to post a bond. Well, that's unusual. 15 minutes later. Okay, I don't know. Sick of it. We got Mike and Etna. Mike, go ahead. Mike? Hi.
Yeah, good morning, Lynn.
Hi.
Yeah, good morning, Lynn.
Hi.
Hey, Lynn, you had mentioned the stupid racist mentioning that, of course, the pyramids were built by slave labor.
Yeah.
Well, that's not actually correct at all.
Who was it built by?
Because who it was built by was craftsmen. At the time of the Egyptians, the whole society was based on religion. So it was an honor and a privilege to build the pyramids. So you had craftsmen actually working on that.
Yeah, but it's not craftsmen might have had a lot to do with it, but they weren't the ones who were pulling those huge blocks up.
That was something you wanted to do.
I don't buy that. I don't buy that. I don't know.
Done research into it. It was the society was based on religion. All the money, and they spent all their monies basically for those pyramids because that was such a belief that they had that the next afterlife was you were doing an honor. You were serving your country by doing that. It wasn't a matter of think about this, Lynn. How could you force people to produce something of that caliber and quality?
Well,
something of today that we can't figure out how it's built.
No, I mean,
you have to have. Think about that.
Yeah, but you're not thinking about the labor, the raw physical labor required to build it. There are plenty of people who
means to do so, but it same like here. But I mean, you have to totally twist your mind around. You're forcing people because you've seen movies, and you've seen maybe 10 Commandments where we're forcing people to do slave labor. Now, was there slavery? Yes, I'm not saying there wasn't slavery at the time, but to say that the pyramids were built. You see what I'm saying? Twist it all around.
Okay,
It was
fine.
An honor.
Well, first of all, I didn't say it. It's the guy who was defending
That's why I
the
said,
Confederate statues.
That's my
Okay.
preface. Why I said you didn't hear me. I said there's
I don't
Jews
know
and
who the
black
hell
person.
built them. I thought aliens built them.
Oh, yeah, I know. I'm getting off. I'm just trying to get you off the track of how terrible things are.
All right.
And showing that-
All right.
And I
Well,
know
you're not doing a very
it
good
is
job of it.
overwhelming, I guess, to Trump, and you listen to all these different things, but I don't know.
Okay.
The pyramids kind of me, and I try to understand and learn about it, but
Well, I think a lot.
a little bit about the.
Yeah, I think a lot of what goes on at in the history of the pyramids is, a lot of it's unknown, and there's a lot of, I'm sure, competitive kinds of histories. No, this happened, that happened. A lot is simply unknown. Hey, I got to run though, but thanks for the alternative view. Okay.
That's exactly.
Okay.
Ventura view.
Okay. Bye. Clarence is on?
Mike.
Hi.
Yes, it's me.
Yeah.
Just real quick. Yeah, the pyramids was more of a public work project than it was with slavery. That's almost common knowledge now. They found, laborers buried like right around the pyramid. They're finding,
Well, how can you tell if they're laborers or slaves? How do you know if they're paid guys?
Yeah. Huh?
How do you know if
Based
they're
on
paid
how-
guys or slaves?
Paid is that's completely different story. They lived around the pyramids, and the way they were buried with different trinkets and this, that, and the other thing. They're believing that they weren't slaves. It was basically a public work project.
Okay, fine.
That's just kind of what he was saying
Mhm.
about that, but that's not what I called. I called about the black guy getting beat up.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I was thinking investing in like a whole wardrobe of half shirts, so I can walk around and my belt can be seen. but that's like a good idea to wear those baggy pants. You can't hold a gun in there. It's like your pants are too baggy for you to hold a gun in your waistband. But I rarely watch news. The local news.
Yeah, I don't.
I turned on the TV this morning, and that's the video that they're showing. And then what they showed was the report and the officer who kicked him and kneed him in the face, saying that he was going for a gun. And it's obviously his hands are obviously out in front of him. If he gets away with that he was reaching for a gun and he's standing above his head with his hands, the guy's hands are out in front of him.
Well,
Kicked him in the face.
it doesn't matter. Black guys you're always reaching for your guns. Even if your hands are over your head.
Mm-hmm.
God
Yeah, and
damn.
I actually read an article about that. That's you're almost always supposed to say that, and that kind of gets you away with it.
Yeah.
That you thought.
I
that
thought.
He was reaching for a gun.
Well, remember, that's what Johnny Gamage was what? They reach for a cell phone, they're killed. They reach for, it's just unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
And it's worked.
Yeah.
It's worked time and time and time and time again.
Yeah. And
I'd say throw these two off. Just get rid of them. Sick of it.
Now the guy who was like on his back, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think he did anything.
Mm-hmm.
He probably just took him down, which is perfect, or stopping him from getting up, sitting on his back. But then that's where he was. He was sitting on his back, and the other guy comes around.
The other guy's kicking him in the head.
And it kicked him in the head. That was like totally uncalled for.
Yeah.
Now the other officer, that's one thing,
Yeah.
But the guy sitting on his back, I thought he was doing what he's supposed to do. His next move, once you got him down like that, is to grab his arms and pull him behind.
That's right, and handcuff him.
Yeah, and handcuff him.
I
And
watch
the guy's
TV.
Arms were out.
Yeah.
The guy's arms were out. Yeah, and the other guy kicked him and kneed him in the face. I was like, that's totally uncalled for. That guy needs to be fired.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Case
That's
closed.
my guy.
Yeah.
That's it.
Case closed. Hey, thanks, Clarence.
All right.
Okay. Bye. Okay. I can take one more call, but we're sort of out of time. Who we have here? Dave. Dave, hi.
Running out of time.
Yeah.
Hey, just like that other guy said, the slaves from Egypt, they were not slaves in the sense that nobody owned them. They were not somebody's personal property. It was, like the guy said, a big public works project. You have the Pharaoh and the priest and all the people who run the government. Then you have everybody else. And everybody else you can call a, quote, slave. There's just the workers in society, and they're the ones that built the pyramids. Nobody owned them. And so
Did they get paid? Did they get paid?
fed.
Oh, they were fed.
You know, and that's they just, it was a completely different type of situation back then. They didn't have really an economy where people they had wages and then went home and bought houses with their families and, you know, went on vacations and stuff like that. It was just a society that fed and housed these people in hovels, more or less, just little things. And you woke up in the morning and you went and chipped rocks and built pyramids. That's what you did.
Okay.
Every day you chip a goddamn rock. You know, a big square. Every day, that's all you did was chip.
Yeah, I always wonder about the poor schmoes who were taking those squares up and putting them in place.
Yeah, well, you had a labor force, and you had foremen who looked after them, and you had some guys that were quasi-engineers who built the things, but it was all just a big societal thing. Nobody owned these people, except everybody owned each other as a big societal. It's a completely different type of society than what we have today.
We wouldn't. Well, I just want to say we wouldn't want to live in it.
Oh, well, that's for damn sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Bye. Yeah, just because they weren't slaves doesn't mean. I mean, it seems to me that would have been. God, I don't know. Okay, they weren't slaves like American slaves. We had those. We owned people. And the descendants of those people we owned are still being treated as if they're slaves, kicked in the head by white overlords while they're totally defenseless. Oh, God. I didn't get to my obit of the day. That's okay. I'll tell you what. We'll see you tomorrow, and my sister should be joining us then. Thursday, we've got Kim Everett of Planned Parenthood of Western PA, where we're really going to get educated about exactly what Planned Parenthood does, what their services are, and what the threat to them is of this Trump care and the budget that the Republicans are working on. Well, you can't make it up. What can I say? See ya. Go Pens.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.